Hello everybody, me again. Today I want to talk to you about singing when ill. This is in response to an inquiry that I had from a singer that I know who had become ill the day before a gig and wasn't sure what to do about it. So I thought I would come on here and talk to you all a little bit about it. So as you're probably all getting to understand from me by now, there is not a one-size-fits-all answer to this. So I'm not going to say you must never sing when you have a cold, or you totally can sing when you have a cold, because that would be very inaccurate and just wouldn't be honest. So the best thing you can do is educate and inform yourself as much as you possibly can as to your own voice, how the voice works, things that work for you. But obviously I am going to give you some advice based on my knowledge now. So I have written myself a little list because I want to make sure I get everything in. So first thing you should know, hoarseness in your voice is a sign that your vocal folds are inflamed. So if any of you don't know much about the vocal folds, I suggest you go onto YouTube and type in vocal folds singing or vocal folds vibrating, and you'll get a lovely video to watch. Anyone that has a lesson with me on their first session gets shown this, because it's so important to know what your instrument looks like and how it works. But to quickly recap, the vocal folds, they sit apart in this V shape when we're not making sound, and then when we are making sound, they come together and they vibrate like this. They have to touch each other most of the time, so they kind of vibrate and collide against each other. So if your voice is hoarse or husky, it's a sign that these vocal folds are actually inflamed, so that when they are vibrating against each other, the surface isn't as smooth and healthy as it normally would be, and it's creating this husky sound. Another thing is worth knowing is that your vocal folds have no pain receptors, so you'll never feel pain on them. So even if they are inflamed, you won't get the sensation of sore vocal folds, basically. So I've had singers say to me before, "Oh, but I don't feel any pain," but I can hear in their voice that they're like this. So you won't feel pain. When we have a sore throat, it's not the vocal folds, it's the area around the walls of our throat, basically, that get inflamed and feel pain. So they have pain receptors, but the vocal folds don't. So if you have a sore throat, it's a pretty good sign that your vocal folds are swollen, and if you hear hoarseness, that is a definite sign that your vocal folds are swollen. Another thing it's worth knowing is if you have a cold but not a sore throat, the chances are your vocal folds will get quite swollen, because all the gunk and stuff from your nose can drip down and touch your vocal folds and create swelling and illness. So worth knowing that all of these things have a knock-on effect for each other. So with that in mind, bear in mind that your vocal folds, when you sing, they have to vibrate like this against each other hundreds of times per second. So if they're inflamed anyway, and then you're singing and they're bashing against each other hundreds of times per second, the chances of sustaining a vocal injury or making the situation worse is quite high. So bear that in mind. This can lead to serious injury. When we hear about singers who, like Sam Smith, Adele, who have had to have surgery or cancel gigs because of vocal problems, it's usually because they've had to sing when they were ill. I don't know that on a personal level, but from what I've heard, it's because they've had to go on when they're ill and go on when they're tired and carry on singing on these swollen vocal folds that are continuing to bash against each other. So bear that in mind. If you have a gig and you have a sore throat, you are putting yourself at risk of a serious injury and not just illness. So if you're someone who gigs regularly or performs regularly, records, whatever, uses your voice regularly, one of the best things that you can do is get yourself into some kind of routine. Now, I know that people don't like doing this, Sorry, I just have to move something on my desktop so I can see better. I know that most people don't like getting into a routine. I don't know why. We find it difficult to discipline ourselves a lot of the time, especially when we're creative types and we want to just sing and enjoy it. We find it quite hard to get into a routine. But it's going to be one of the best things you can possibly do, because you're going to know your voice so well that you're going to notice when it's not on form, and you're also going to have the opportunity to try stuff and figure out what works for you, so that if you do wake up on the morning of a gig and you've got a cold or a sore throat, you know what things normally work for you and you can try them, see if they work, and you're not risking kind of making it worse or having an adverse reaction. So things that do work, let me move this thing again because my screen is not helping me very much right now. So another thing I would say is don't leave stuff to the last minute. So that's kind of what I mean by get into a routine. Don't suddenly decide, oh, I've got a gig today, I better drink some water. Or I've got a gig today, so maybe I'll do some vocal exercises, but I've never done any before. Because, first of all, too little, too late. And second of all, you don't know if these things are going to work for you or not. And they could actually go the opposite way. So don't leave things to the last minute. Be in a routine. Do the stuff that is good for you all the time, as much as you possibly can. This actually will put your voice in a better position to deal with illness. If you take care of it on a regular basis, it's going to be, your technique is going to be good. You're going to be used to efficient voice use, so your voice is going to be able to handle more extreme situations. It's not enough to just kind of go, oh crap, I've got a bit of a cold, I might do some vocal exercises, or I don't know, drink some water today. Too little, too late. Take your voice and your vocal health seriously. So the only things that are proven to help if you have a cold or a sore throat, besides obviously antibiotics or whatever, the only things that are proven to work are sleep and water. And these won't necessarily help your singing. These are going to help your vocal folds and the healing process, basically. So the only things that are actually proven to work, sleep and water. So I hear a lot about honey and lemon. I hear a lot about kind of various pastilles that you can buy, and they might feel soothing, and by all means use them if they soothe you. Hi Ellie. Oh, one of my friends from school is here. They might actually soothe, but they will not speed up the healing process. They'll make you feel better temporarily, but you need to be careful because you don't want to numb the area and actually push too hard. Remember how your vocal folds have to slam against each other, basically, when you're singing. You don't want them to the area around your throat to then be numb so that you push harder. So you've got to kind of know all of this stuff so that if an issue comes up, then you kind of know what works for you and what your voice normally feels like. So where was I? So water and sleep are the only things that actually work. So if you're well hydrated on a regular basis, and if you get enough sleep on a regular basis, first of all, you're probably going to be less likely to get ill, but also your body's going to be in a better position to fight whatever illness you have as quickly as you can. So the thing about drinking water is that it takes several hours for the water that you drink to actually hydrate your vocal folds, and they need to be really well hydrated in order to do this vibrating action. It's not enough to sip water during your gig. I mean, by all means do that, but it's also it's basically going to hydrate you later on after you've finished the gig, probably. So drinking a load of water in the morning of a gig is going to make you need to pee more, and that's going to be annoying, isn't it? But if you drink a lot of, about 2 litres of water on a regular basis and keep yourself well hydrated, you're going to have more robust, healthier vocal folds, you're going to be less likely to get ill. Your voice is going to be more able to handle anything that's thrown at it, etc., etc. So don't leave the drinking water to the last minute and go, oh, better drink some water now, because it's not going to work. You need to be well hydrated most of the time if you're a singer who is busy and gigging regularly. Hi Adam, this one's for you. Please feel free to ask me any questions whilst you're here so that I can kind of target whatever your thoughts are. So where is my little, don't forget to mention that sheet. Oh, I've actually lost it now. Oh, I haven't, it's here, right, cool. So there are things that do help, and things that don't help. So another thing that doesn't help is things like decongestant tablets. So, you know, the stuff that when you've got a real gunky nose, you take, I don't know what they're called, Sudafed or something, and it will draw out all of the mucus and horrible stuff if you've got a really runny, blocked nose. That is not good for your voice. It's fine if you're not a singer, and you're kind of just really sick of having a blocked nose, but what it does is it draws out all the moisture, and then these vocal folds, these very delicate, small vocal folds, actually, they're about the length of a thumbnail, they then become really dry, and actually they need to be really moist and lubricated in order to kind of slide and collide against each other without creating more inflammation. So things like that actually can make it worse. I once had a really bad cold, and I don't really get colds very often. In fact, I don't get ill very often, but I had a bad cold a few years ago, and my sinuses were so blocked that my eyes were like really small in my face, and I was just so sick of it that I took a decongestant tablet, and the next morning I woke up with no voice. I was like this, and I had to cancel 3-4 days of teaching because of it. So really do not recommend taking those if you're feeling well but you have a blocked nose, because it's just going to make it worse. So things that you can do, and now this was recommended to me by an ENT surgeon, so a real top ENT who works with singers. So I've used it and I trust it, and it's literally the most effective thing is a sinus rinse. There are various types. There's things called neti pots, and there's something that I've used before called Neilmed. Look it up, you can probably see a lot about it on Amazon. You can buy them on Amazon, but it's basically a sinus rinse that you can squirt up your nose. It's a bit weird, but it flushes everything out of your sinuses, but it keeps everything really lubricated. It's very gentle, so it flushes that out effectively, but with water as like a saline solution. So it's completely gentle but completely effective, and that might work if you do that regularly, or if you do it on the day before a gig, or when you have a cold. You might actually get some benefit from that. But again, these are things that you need to be trying on a regular basis so that you actually know if they work for you. Don't try it right before your gig or the day before, because if it doesn't work, it might be too late. So you really need to be well informed about these things and trying them on a regular basis. What I'll do is I'm going to put in the info of this video when I've finished, I'm going to put all the information for everything that I've discussed afterwards, so you can look it all up. So we've got a few more people here. Please chip in or ask questions if you have any, because it's the kind of person I am. I like to go with the audience. So let me know what your thoughts are. Right, let me find my little lead sheet again. Cool. So I've written something really weird on here. Oh, I think it's an autocorrect. Okay, it's fine. I was like, what was I thinking? There are some vocal exercises that are proven to have to cause an anti-inflammatory response in the body for your vocal folds. So this works more if your voice is fatigued rather than if you're ill. So there are certain vocal exercises, not all of them, some very, very specific ones, if done properly, are proven, it's quite new research, to have an anti-inflammatory effect on the body, and thus on the vocal folds. So if you have got a hoarse voice from vocal fatigue, doing a small amount or the right amount of these exercises will actually help. But if you're ill, the jury's out on whether they will actually help if you've got an actual infection or virus. I think the research hasn't extended that far yet, and I wouldn't like to say whether that's something you should try or not. Oh, lots of people. My sister's here. That's very nice. So I'm not going to show you any of those because actually I don't want to be showing you them if you've never done them before. Look it up. The straw exercise, which I talk to people about a lot. In fact, I am going to show you it. Give me one second. So if you get a thin straw, actually if you're ill, I would suggest a bigger straw than this. This is the size that I would normally use. But if you're ill, I would suggest a bigger size than this. Like a normal straw, basically. Usually in vocal exercises we use a very thin straw. But if you're ill, I would try a big one. Like a normal size drinking straw. And doing some really gentle, my voice isn't sounding great today, some really gentle pitch glides up and down. But the most important thing about that is you've got to be listening to what your body and your voice feels like. If you're trying to kind of like push really hard, you're just going to make it worse. That's why I wasn't going to show you the exercise, because I didn't want you all to run off and kind of try these things without having that real awareness. But you've got to be so gentle and careful with it that in order for it to actually have its benefit, you've got to know how to do it properly. So this is why I'm saying don't leave it to the last minute. Know these exercises and do them regularly anyway, so that when an illness or something comes up, you already know what works for you and how to do it properly. So yeah, like I was saying, some exercises such as the straw can, if done properly, have an anti-inflammatory effect on the vocal folds, but only if done properly and only if you're not actually really ill, only really if you've got vocal fatigue from overuse. So I'm going to finish by saying that it's always a judgment call. Obviously, if you feel really, really rotten, then that's a sign that, just like anybody else, you're going to have to call in sick to work that day. If you feel okay, but your voice just isn't up to scratch, you've got an arsenal of things to try now. So the sinus rinses, sleeping, water, some gentle vocal exercises to test the waters. But it's always going to come down to a judgment call. And don't forget, there's quite potentially serious consequences of that judgment call, because you could actually really injure your voice if you sing on inflamed vocal folds. So it's a judgment call to make that is much easier to make if you know your voice really well, if you're well informed, if you work with a coach. Like the person that asked me about this the other day said, I was going to message you about it, but I didn't want to bother you outside of a lesson. If you have a coach that you know and you work with, ask them, or see them regularly enough. It doesn't have to be every week, once a month, just to kind of be really getting to know your own voice and what it needs from you. And vocal lessons aren't cheap, but think of the money that you're going to lose by potentially having to cancel gigs because you don't know what to do or because you've pushed your voice too hard. Disappointed I haven't heard whiskey mentioned once. Whiskey is awful for your voice. I'm not saying never drink whiskey. If you're ill, horrendous. Alcohol is so dehydrating. It's really bad for us, really. Anything that has a dehydrating effect on the body, caffeine, alcohol, what else? Those are the main things. They're so bad for your vocal folds. And you can see I've got a Costa coffee cup right here. I love coffee. I like wine, I like all of this stuff, but none of it is good if you're ill. It's all really, really bad, because what you need is for your body and your vocal folds to be really hydrated so that they can withstand the force of muscle use and tissue movement. So if you're then dehydrating yourself by drinking alcohol and coffee and stuff, you're just going to make it so much worse and potentially put yourself at risk of injury and having to cancel gigs, or even, you know, cancel lots of gigs, or even, you know, potentially take a break from singing to have speech therapy and, you know, relearn your vocal technique, which is what nobody wants to have to do. So where was I? I was saying, does anybody have any questions? Please ask me some as well as I'm wrapping up the next bit, because whenever I do these videos, I always kind of like don't know how long to wait, and quite often I'll log off. I'll end the video and then people have asked me questions, but there was a bit of a time lapse. So ask them now whilst I'm still talking, and I'll try and get to them before I end the video. So I was saying, yeah, so inform yourself. It's always going to be a judgment call, unless you're obviously feeling really, really horrendous. But singing on a unhealthy voice, it's not cool. I think we kind of like to think it's a bit rock and roll, like, oh yeah, I'm ill, but I'm singing anyway. It's not cool, it's not big, it's not clever, it's not going to help you. You know, it's not going to, first of all, it might sound a bit crap, or at least you might start off thinking, okay, I sound kind of cool and husky, but by the end, you're not going to be very happy, especially if you wake up the next day and you're hoarse. That is a really bad sign. Don't forget, the vocal folds vibrate hundreds of times per second whilst we're singing. They are the size of your thumbnail, the length of your thumbnail. They're tiny. They're really, really small. So you need to take really good care of them. Hoarseness is a sign that they're already inflamed. And then if they're bashing against each other hundreds of times per second during the course of a gig, they're going to get even worse. So the best thing you can do is take good care of yourself in the long term. Try the things that I've mentioned, but try them before you get ill, so you know if they work for you, so that you're not kind of at the 11th hour trying a million things and hoping for the best and potentially making it worse. Work with a coach. Like, it doesn't, I think that there's a misconception that singing lessons are for people who can't sing. It's not like that. It's like an athlete works with a coach, not because they're not good at whatever sport they do. It's because they want to be really, really good and really reliable and consistent and strong and have that longevity. Singing, well, maybe singing lessons are, I guess it's difficult because some of us say singing lessons, some of us say vocal coaching. But what I do is not teaching people how to sing. It's teaching people helping people to understand their own voice better, arming them with tools that work for them, helping them to develop upon what they've already got. You know, I'm working with people who are already, you know, pretty successful. So we're not teaching them how to sing. It's how to understand your own voice and how to be kind of an elite performer in the same way that an athlete does with their coach. So it's always going to be a judgment call, but if you have a coach, if you have a practice routine, if you know what things work for you, then it's going to be so much easier to make that judgment call. And last thing, I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again, is that if you have a highly effective, efficient, robust vocal technique to begin with, you're going to be able to withstand these things better than someone who doesn't. So it's really worth investing in it ahead of time so that you know whether you know your own limits, basically. So another thing I was going to say, which I actually haven't mentioned yet, is this is quite a good book. The Owner's Manual to the Voice, a guide for singers and other professional voice users. It's got absolutely tons of information on how to look after your voice, how it works, and it's written in quite an accessible way. It's not too overly medical or sciencey, although it does have a strong scientific background, which is written quite nicely. So I definitely recommend that you either buy this one or just look at books and inform yourself as to how your voice works, so that you can really arm yourself with as much tools and information as you possibly can. So if nobody has any questions, I'm going to go and finish my coffee. I'm going to give you all a few seconds. This is the awkward bit. Okay, cool. So I'm going to add some links to the top. Oh, one last thing I'm going to say is please try and follow me on my other stuff, my other social media. I'm going to do probably this talk again on Instagram, but on Instagram I'm Hartford Vocals. I am the same on Twitter. I'm just loving the social media and trying to build it up across several other platforms. So please do follow me on other stuff. And also I'd like to be able to see your stuff as well. And people who've liked my page, there's not really a two-way thing. I can't really see who you are and what's going on. So please do follow me on other platforms and I'll follow you back, and we can have some fun liking stuff and watching stuff. So that'll be good. Okay, guys, I'm going to go. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been useful. And I will hopefully speak to you all soon. Okay, bye.